Welcome to the Better Outcomes podcast, where we discuss all things leadership, sales, and communication in Australian business. At Better Outcomes Training, we provide world-class training solutions for businesses who want to arm their teams with cutting-edge skills to lead better, sell better, and enjoy more success, purpose, and profit from the work they do. For a full breakdown of all the courses we offer, visit www.better-outcomes.com.au. There's also a link in the description. Now, on to today's podcast. Enjoy.
Welcome back to the Better Outcomes podcast. My name's Craig. I'm one of your hosts, opposite good friend, lead facilitator, founder of Better Outcomes, Paul Harrison, here for one of our, I would say world-class chats, but I'm not sure about that, Paulie.
We've got to have aspirations, brother. We've got to have aspirations.
We've got a bit of a series going on here. Me and Paul usually do this over Chili Scramble after getting our egos checked on a jiu-jitsu mat on Sunday morning. And it's something that I particularly thought we should share, especially with this man, his knowledge of leadership, training, facilitation, communications, negotiation. List goes on. I'll pump you up a bit, Paulie, but it's endless, and the insights you get off just a chat with him are life-changing, especially for me. So, Paulie, how's your day been so far? How's your week been? What's been going on with you, mate?
Fantastic. Well, Cuz, thank you for the introduction again, mate. I really appreciate it. Funny enough, for a Sunday morning, I'm feeling absolutely electrifying. Thank you. Yes, I didn't quite make it to jiu-jitsu this morning, but I rolled yesterday. So I went for a walk with a weighted vest on today. So 20 kilograms is an additional weighted vest. But it's all part of this effort to get healthier, man. You know, as my chiro said to me, he goes, before the age of 40, we tend to find ways to try and hurt ourselves. After the age of 40, we're just trying to survive, you know? And I think that's quite right. So, I went for a walk this morning with a weighted vest. Now I get to speak with your good self. And there's always good things that come from our conversations, mate. So looking forward to it. How about yourself?
I agree. Same stuff. Work at the moment is physical. Very, we're under the pump at work. 6 days a week and long hours. So usual stuff, construction industry, overworked, understaffed, which has been, I think something that's been going on since COVID.
Yeah.
So, and major projects in the city, but, getting through it. And on top of that, making sure I cram as much extra stuff as possible into every day, audio books and Toastmasters and learning so I can change careers. Usual stuff with me. Usual stuff. Wake up in the morning, try and figure out what's going on.
Just to jump in here a little bit, mate, thinking about this, because obviously working in the training industry, it's something that fascinates me is the learning curve that people go through with regards to wanting to make a long-lasting personal change. And you really have been on a hell of a journey over the last year and a half, maybe 2 years. And I was wondering, I think people might like to hear a little bit of sort of about your journey with regards to what you're doing, what the goals are moving forward, the changes you've made, which have been absolutely phenomenal to observe, and quite a privilege to see that as well. So would you give people a little bit of an insight with regards to what your journey's been like for the last couple of years, what it was that made changes for you, and what are the big sort of breakthroughs you've had, and all of that type of stuff? Because I think it's always valuable when you see somebody who's getting real traction. It's like, how the hell are they doing that? What's the story behind it? Give us a little bit of your insight on that, my man.
Love to. It's you don't have to go far. I don't have to go far to look for the inspiration. You're sitting opposite me here. It was you that got us into jiu-jitsu, which I think was one of the big turning points. A couple of years ago, we decided to go to jiu-jitsu. We were looking for something to do, so to speak, maybe from the rugby background. I know I missed the contact and the camaraderie and the feeling of competition, which I think we both were missing, and you tracked us down. We got into jiu-jitsu, which was, I think we were looking for combat sport or something to challenge us. And then jiu-jitsu is very good in my eyes, and I know it's good in your eyes, because You can make it as hard on yourself or as soft on yourself as you like. So when you're beginning and the body's only used to sitting on the couch, going and rolling can seem terrifying, because I know one of our biggest fears at the time, Paulie, was getting through training, getting through warm-ups.
Getting through the warm-up.
It's like, oh my God, I don't want to pop a hammy. So that was a big motivating thing. You'd been into me already before that about learning. You got me, I think you spotted a couple of things in me with your keen eye, and you started me off with, I think it was Chris Voss's book on Never Split the Difference. And that, between that and you and a little bit of jiu-jitsu, that ignited a fire in me. And the other big thing was that the people at jiu-jitsu were so, I know I carry on about it, but Rise, MMA, they're phenomenal down there.
Absolutely.
I remember saying to you when we walked in, everyone was nice to us and so welcoming. And I said to you, are we stitched up here?
Yeah.
This isn't normal. But they're just lovely people, awesome people, great crowd to be around, and motivational and inspiring. All of a sudden you think, geez, these people are so good, and it kind of brings out that next level in you. And that spurned a bit of a competitive streak in me, a bit of a fire. I want to be better.
Yeah.
I want to try and present myself in the best possible light. So I started exercising more, which led further and further. I started doing a lot of running, which was hard on the old rig. But I managed to get myself, after about 3 or 4 months worth of training from not being able to run very far, and got myself and knocked out a 10K for charity earlier in last year, and did it in record time because I got a bit upset with everyone who's passing me. I'm not competitive at all. I just don't like losing. So I wound it up a bit and start. I went faster than I should have. But I ran it in 57 something. So very happy with that. And as far as the journey goes and the changes I've made, it's all kind of been organic and flowed on from the whole learning thing, and going down little rabbit holes. I've been concentrating on a lot of sales and negotiation work, leadership stuff, all books, just consuming audio books every morning while I punish myself on my new torture machine outside, which is an assault bike. Oh, the balloons are back.
Where those balloons keep coming from?
I have no idea.
I don't know if it's a magic word you're saying or something. Sorry, go on, mate. Go on.
Balloons. Anyway, sorry. Keep watching the episodes because there's balloons in every one. If you spot what time they are, you get a prize. So I've got the new assault bike outside. I flog myself on that in the morning, and it's all been around setting up good habits and trying to stay positive, looking at the end goal. And that for me is 30 years as a tradie has taken a toll on this body. It's also given me a lot. I wouldn't be where I am today without the construction industry and my journey through it. And it's taught me a lot of things, dealing with people, dealing with clients, situations, deadlines, whole host of things, from being an employee right to running a business. So I'm hoping that experience will do me well, because a few months' time seems daunting, but I'm going to not so much throw all that away, but leave the tools behind and move into maybe a sales role, still selling into the trade, staying in my lane, because tradies are my people, and I really think I can give something back. So not only sales, but also looking at maybe some motivational work amongst some leadership teams and how we can work together as tradies. That's something we've been struggling with for a little bit, I think. Leadership's done differently in a lot of parts of the world, and especially in the construction industry. It's more based around how good you are or who you know than what you actually know and how you can lead people. And maybe some motivation, some mentoring. I've been thinking about doing some mentoring lately, talking to a couple of boys, going into schools and talking to young people coming through, especially young fellas who may not want to, or who may not have the right kind of view of the construction industry and what you can get out of it. So, or general stuff in life for young fellas who might be a bit lost. I think I owe it to give some back, and if I can help some people out, or I can make someone laugh for a day, it's been a good day for me. So that's pretty much where I am. Mostly it's down to you driving me. I've used a few curse words as I've been running and exercising. Paulie's always doing this to me, putting me in these situations, and the outcome was awesome.
I
Which I
think
is
the
what
feelings
you
being
knew all
mutual there,
along.
mate. I think the feelings being mutual. But I tell you this, quick question on this, because I know that you've made some allusion to it a little bit earlier, and I think this is very important. And I know you're across something you put a lot of research into recently, and have been walking your talk as well, particularly around habit formation. Now, you just made mention of the people at Rise and how awesome the people at Rise were. Now, we've obviously been on this journey for the last year and a half at training at Rise MMA and the learning doing the jiu-jitsu. And I 100% with you agree with you that the people there are absolutely phenomenal. I mean, that place has given us both, I think, so much. Here's my question to you: when it comes to habit formation, because of course now we've formed a habit where we know we're training 2-3 times a week. It's going to happen. That's a new habit we have. It's a healthy habit. It's a phenomenal habit. It's better than being in the pub on a 3 nights a week, that type of thing. Here's my question to you: with taking on habit formation, the impact of the great people that we train with, how does that play into formulating that new habit? And I know I'm putting you on the spot right now, but what are your thoughts on that?
It was massive.
How
I
so?
don't think I would have stuck with it if the people weren't as good.
Yeah.
Because it was bloody hard. Like jiu-jitsu was bloody hard at the start.
Yeah.
And
Still is.
on
Still is.
the body was huge, and mentally as well.
Yeah.
It mentally as well, it was very difficult to fight I remember we first started, it was Tuesdays, Thursdays. I would wake up at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, which is about an hour and a half early for me. And my brain would go, you woke up too early, you can't go to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And it would just start making these excuses. My brain is so good at that. It just makes these excuses. It's raining, you can't go to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
It comes up with some terrible stuff just to put these roadblocks, maybe to keep me comfortable, who knows. But without those people there encouraging, being so welcoming, and even yourself, the other part of it was the commitment that I think we accidentally made where you picked me up.
Remember that, yeah.
So
yeah,
whether I liked it or not, you were coming. And whether you liked it or not, you had to pick me up. Now, it's only 2 minutes from the house. I could walk there in 5.
Yeah.
But I think that kept us that kept us honest and kept us on point, which I think it may be like a training buddy. If you get a training buddy, it would have been very hard to walk in there solo. I think it would have been very hard to walk in there solo and keep it up. I know there's been a few people drop out while we've been there. The turnover's been pretty high.
Yeah.
But I think that the thing I see with habits a lot, especially forming new habits, is people try and do the whole thing in one go.
Yeah.
It's like stop drinking, or which is good, stop drinking or stop smoking or stop eating sugar, which is, I think, the hardest. But there's 2 ways you can get to it. You can be forced to do it or get to the point of where you don't want to do it anymore. You're forced to give up smoking, or you just get to the point where you're sick of it. Or if you truly want to give up, you got to try and just small steps. So maybe you're smoking, or maybe we'll stick with drinking. Maybe you're drinking 6 beers a night after work or whatever, something like that. Maybe instead of saying I'm not going to drink this week at all, that's going to be too much of a shock to the system. You're not going to last most of the time. So maybe you go down to, I only have 2 or 3 cans a night, and maybe I'll give Sunday a rest. And you see how that goes. And you have your good days and your bad days. You might have 7 one day after a hard day or a terrible day at work. And then you may go away for the weekend and not have any. So you kind of work on that. That's how I formulate my new habits. I try and do it slowly and build up. Just build, like stacking stuff.
That's
talk about it.
Yeah, that's a great way of framing it up there. And I think also just back to the training, with jiu-jitsu and the people there as well. I've got a belief that there can be good jobs and there can be bad jobs, but really what makes the difference between between the enjoyment of the work that you do is the people that you associate with as well, and I think personally it's like, working in training, I get to work with people, and 95% of the time they're there because they want to be there, they want to learn, they've got that growth mindset, and there's nothing more beautiful than working with people who want to learn, who are open to learning. It's just like, because and then 5% of the time it's like, so we get what we call volunteers and voluntolds. Okay, so people who want to be there, and then people who are told they're going to be there, and that's our responsibility as trainers as well, to open people up, even if those defenses are high. But just coming back to that as well, and I mean, you're right, going out and training something, and we're no spring chickens, man. I mean, we're looking sort of, we're looking late 40s, late 40s, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And and it is, and you've got these young athletic, young bucks coming up, and they're competitive, and rightly so. But and you don't sort of come out on top in every role. A lot of roles you're going to have to tap out, which is, of course, what we do. But I say this because, I mean, even when you're rolling in there, you're exhausted, you're sweating, you're battling to think straight and what have you. There's not been a single time that I've left that gym not feeling good, not feeling great. Every single time, even with little niggles, injuries that we pick up or what have you, it's like, that was worth it. That was absolutely awesome. And I think so often it comes down to, you're rolling with somebody for 4 or 5 minutes, trying to separate them from limit consciousness. But then at the end of it, you bump hands, give each other a hug, and we're on to the next one. It's like, what is this?
It is. Our instructor, the head instructor there, Cam Rowe, awesome. I'd love to interview him, by the way. I think I'd love to interview him. That'd be good for a laugh. I think the worst part would be if I gave him too much of a hard time and we could show everyone what happened down the road afterwards. But he said, and a couple of other high belts said to us, that jiu-jitsu is very mirrors life, and it teaches life lessons on those mats. Ego, you're not going to win everything. You got to know when to give up. The fallacy of sunken cost, is that what it's called? You've got to know you've been chasing this rear naked choke on this guy, and it's not going to happen. You've got it right. That's not working. You've got to back off. And I know it's taught me a lot. It's taught me about, like you said, you got these young guys who started with us, who we were doing the same as for 6 months. All of a sudden now they're miles ahead of us.
Yeah.
Because their bodies are in better shape, and it teaches you that everyone's on a different journey. Everyone's on a different path. I'd get so jealous of them, like, oh, why didn't I start this 20 years ago when I could still move properly? But it really, it kind of puts you in your place, but it makes you happy about where you are, and you, like you said, I even broke a rib at I got my rib broken there at one of the gradings and came away. It was the best day of my life. I was so happy. So fantastic place. I don't think I'd be sitting here with you now if it wasn't for that place. I'd be somewhere. I'd be doing something, but I'm pretty happy with where I am now, and I wouldn't swap it.
Absolutely.
Anyone out there wants to come and roll with us and wants to come on a journey and see what it's like, don't be scared. We were terrified. We thought our knees were going to end up outside our bodies.
Absolutely.
But it's worth it, I tell you. Mentally, sometimes you've had a bad week, like you said, and you go down there and you get thrashed, you get flogged, and you walk off the mats and you feel so good. It's not funny.
Absolutely. So, I think it's become the underpinning that I'm exceptionally grateful for the last 2 years, man. I mean, it's even, I've lost.
What's that constant in the background that you know's there?
Yeah. I mean, even, and how it plays out in so many other areas of life. I mean, I've dropped 30 kilograms in a year and a half, and how that impacts the work you do as well, because you're standing, you're walking, you're talking, you're engaging with people. An extra 30 kilograms is a lot of weight, man, and it's like, you can give us so much more to your clients, now that, you're feeling healthier, you're fitter, you're stronger. And it's just started a whole health kick journey, which again, I think is so crucial, especially when we get to people of our vintage. What can we say?
I know. And people have said it to me. I've noticed it in you. It really shows through. like in your connections with other people, you seem like a lot of people that I hadn't seen for a while, like, oh my God, you've lost weight. You look so good. What's the secret? You know, what's this? What's that? You're happy, you're positive, you're always bubbly and popping around. And even the people who've been around me, the guys at work have said, oh man, you're so much different since you've started jiu-jitsu. They all laughed at me when I started, and I'd laugh along with them and rocking to work the next day, all busted up and sore and rash burns across my neck and all sorts of stuff. Can't talk properly. We're doing rear naked chokes, like. And they're just laughing their heads off. And but now they're like, oh my gosh. One of them the other day goes, hey, Cuzzy, you nearly got abs. What's going on? I go, no, mate. No. Keep a layer or two over top of them. We're not going that far down that road. So for some reason here, it says up in my top corner, they've got less than a minute of recording time.
Well, I'm recording on this side, so we're okay. I'm recording on this side, so we're okay. This is why it's early doors, folks. This is early doors. This is not the
early doors. We're going to look back on this and think, geez, we had a lot of hair back then, and we're doing well. That's what we're going to think. The habits and the jiu-jitsu journey and the habits and the whole where I am at the moment, it's been spurred from learning. You ignited that fire in me. I'll never be able to thank you for where I am and all the work and help you've given me, because as a tradie, I thought I knew everything. You know, I'm a tradie, I'm a carpenter. I can learn new bits and pieces. There's new tools coming out. There's new ways of doing things. The industry doesn't change much. So once you've been in it for a couple of decades, like, oh, sweet, that's all. I'm good. And I kind of switched it off. And there was always, I guess there was something nagging me.
Okay, so welcome back, everybody. We had a slight, let's call it a technical glitch, but this is only our second podcast. So, Cuz, great to have you back again. Your name's come up as Craig Loader, not Cuz Loader. But there we go. We can make that amendment as well.
I can sort that out.
Can make that change right now.
Fantastic. We can try.
So, folks, when we were last speaking, it was we're talking about obviously the new habit formation with the example that we were talking about in Cuz and myself starting out with jiu-jitsu. Cuz, how did you get that nickname, Cuz? I don't think I've ever asked you that question.
I'm from New Zealand, and you call everyone Cuz. Hey, Cuz. It's like, hey, bro, hey, mate, hey, bro. It's hey, Cuz, hey, Cuz. Yeah. It's, I guess it's sort of cousin. I played cricket for a long time, local club, went to a new club, and I was one of two new players. And there was probably 100, 150 people in the club. And so it was easy for them to remember two guys' names, but I had to try and remember. I think I knew three people there, so I had to remember like 147 names. No, I'm not very good at that. So I'd go, hey, how you going? People would go, hi, how are you, Craig? And I'd go, good, Cuz, what's going on? And I'd call everyone Cuz. Now, as you know, you don't get to choose your nicknames, not the ones that stick anyway. And they brought out shirts. I made the first team, and they brought out shirts, and you had pants and everything, and they were all had the moniker on them and the name, and they nicknamed me Cuz because they couldn't figure out a name for me. And they go, he calls everyone Cuz, so they called me Cuz. I couldn't call that just dead ended me, so I couldn't call anyone Cuz. I had to learn everyone's names, and it just stuck, and it stuck everywhere. So it's the funny part is my kids. We talked about this briefly on another one of these, where the first impressions thing. Yeah. And I think you used the example of a coffee shop. I talked about eggs and barley. The other thing is
omelets and barley, wasn't it?
Eggs and omelets and barley, yes. And the other thing that I've noticed with that nickname, Cuz, is it's about how we talked about with standing out from the crowd.
Yeah.
Now, if I go and introduce myself, or someone asks my name and I say Craig, they're like, oh yeah, and they've forgotten it instantly. But generally, even when a lot of the time they'll get you to give you your name when you get a coffee order or thing, and they'll say name for the order, and I'll say Cuz, and they'll go, what? Sorry? I go, Cuz. Oh. And they'll put it down, and they remember. It sparks interest. It's did it a couple of times in a shop, and my kids are like, why do you call yourself Cuz? I go, you watch me walk back in here later to see if he's got it. He'll remember. Walk back in, and the guy goes, hey, Cuz, how are you?
Yeah.
Just one of those standout things. So
yeah,
I don't mind it. I don't care what people call me. I've been called a lot worse.
It suits you, mate. It suits you. If people remember it, then it's all good. But interestingly enough, you say it's a Kiwi thing. we've got a South African thing as well, which is my cousin. My cousin.
Yeah.
Now I got to tell you this because, and I don't know how his nickname came along, but one of the most one of the greatest comedians to come out of South Africa is a gentleman by the name of Barry Hilton. And Barry
Yes.
Hilton, very well known guy, but he refers to everybody as my cousin. My cousin. It's a Joburg thing. It's my cousin. my cousin. No, it's not so much a Cape Town thing, but it's more a Joburg thing. So yeah, I think he spent a fair amount of time up there, but there we go. Shout out Barry Hilton. What a legend.
I
Now,
know. I've seen some of his stuff. He's hilarious.
absolutely. Something I want to ask you as well is, and again, I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but from the point of view of what makes people start forming new habits? When do people know it's like, okay, it's time for a change? What's your experience on that? And from the fair amount of the research that you've undertaken, because let's face it, the quality of the habits that we hold dictate the quality of the life that what we do on the regular dictates the quality of the life that we have.
Yes.
So how would you say, what is the foundation for somebody to say, you know what, enough is enough, let's make this move?
A good question. I think it's got to be a trigger point. I think there's got to be a point, whether it's a conscious decision or whether it's forced upon you. I think there comes a point, especially with good habits. Bad habits are easy to they just fall on you. Bad habits.
Yeah.
And breaking bad habits, I think, is probably harder than creating new ones, because I believe creating new habits is starting small and stacking. So that's hard. But undoing bad habits has got to be even harder, because there's maybe decades of doing it there. So breaking bad habits, I think, is hard. But I think there's a trigger point, and it's something where you just decide, I want to do this, I want to do that, or I don't want to do this anymore, or I want to try and be like that. And whether it's inspirational from someone you've seen, or something that's happened in your life, or maybe you want to be a bit better, or you want to change roles. I know personally, I take a lot of, bless you.
Thank you.
Personally, I take a lot more inspiration from people who've done it, who've been there, whether it's down and out and up, or from nothing to something, and who stay reasonably humble about it too.
Yeah.
And are happy to give it away.
That would time with a lot of the stuff that you've read as well, a lot of the books, the audio books and stuff like that you consume. Yeah.
A real connection there. The books I've been reading kind of follow on, not in a logical order because it's me, but they kind of follow on in the same kind of vein of people. Whenever I come across an audio book, I've read quite a few that didn't really resonate with me on the same topics that I've been reading other ones on, whether it's the delivery of the presentation or whatnot. But I still managed to take a little bit away from that. But people like Hormozy for some reason turned a light on with me. David Goggins was very inspirational. I read his near the start. Again, Chris Voss. People like that. Even the one you got me recently on to Excom.
Escom,
Escom, the South
Andre
African,
narrator.
The South African CEO of the Power Network. His book was fascinating. It was really fascinating, and especially with the leadership side of things. If you sat and thought about what he was trying to say and where he was trying to go and how he was trying to get there, I thought was lots to take away from that. I quite enjoyed the book. But a trigger, to me, it's got to be some kind of trigger or some kind of event where you just decide, this is what I need to start doing. And I think half the battle is fighting the demons in your head.
I think there's certainly a lot to do with that. I've heard a few comments in the past with regards to breaking old habits, because again, with better outcomes, that's our North Star with regards to what we want to do. We want to make sure the client's getting better outcomes in the workplace environment. That's it. That's the only thing that's important to me. But effectively is a lot of that is going to come down to formulating new habits. Now, you made mention there of breaking old habits. I have heard it said, and I'd be interested on your take on this, with regards to, is it possible to break old habits or do you have to be able to replace old habits? Because there's a line of thinking that says that in nature, anytime something stopped, there's a vacuum is formed, and in nature, a vacuum is always going to be, is going to be
nature abhors a vacuum. It doesn't like a vacuum. Won't do it.
Yeah. So effectively, instead of breaking or stopping old habits, which I think is something that certainly I've fallen into hugely, and there's always been battles to try and deal with, but actually being able to replace it. And again, I mean, I know we've been, making people's ears bleed over jujitsu today, but the replacing going to the pub for some social interaction rather than now go to, you go to jujitsu because you're going to get that same interaction with people of phenomenal character, and good people, great people.
I think it's about time. Good friend of mine that I worked with, I actually worked with him during COVID, met him during COVID. He's an electrician, cracking guy. Wired this house actually, and it all still works. So shout out to you, Benny. He actually opened my eyes to exactly what you're talking about. He gave up drinking. He was 40, and he said to me, he goes, I've given it a fair crack over over COVID. And he goes, I promised my wife, I was going to give up when I'm 40, and I've just turned 41, 40 or 41. He was a little bit late on it, and he gave up. And I talked to him 6 months later. He looked really good. Like there's not much of Benny. He's only a little fella, but he just, there's more life about him, more vitality. And I talked to him about it, and he goes, oh, it's going great, mate. The hardest thing I found about giving up drinking was filling up all the extra time I had.
Really? Wow.
Hungover mornings.
Yeah.
The days where you've just trashed yourself and you got to lie on the couch all day or stay in bed. And also, like you said, the time at the pub, the actual time that he found he was subconsciously working his days around, geez, I've got to get home by 5 because I want a beer. I want to have a few beers.
Okay.
So if you start to break it down in time, to combat that, I think 5 a.m. every morning, he's in the boxing gym. 2 or 3 days a week minimum. He's at the wave pool. He takes out to the wave pool, goes surfing near Tullamarine, I believe.
Beautiful.
He coaches his son's footy teams now. So what he had to do, which I think is exactly what your question is about, is he had to fill up that dead time. Nature abhors the vacuum. If you're going to take X amount, I've managed to. I didn't even know how I was going to fit jiu-jitsu in. It was like, I've got a real physical job. I'm going to be dead tired when I come home, and getting to jiu-jitsu was hard, trying to find that time. When am I going to learn? When am I going to learn all these audio books? When am I going to start consuming this knowledge? Get up earlier. So now alarm goes off 4:30 in the morning. Most of the time I'm awake by then, because, why wouldn't you wake up and think about stuff that doesn't matter at 3 o'clock in the morning? But finding that time. Haven't had a drink since last year, accidentally, just, I don't know, after Christmas, I decided that's it, I'm done. Let's see how we go with this. And so that's driven it as well. Especially over the Christmas break, I was able to fill up time and spend a lot of time on the mat. So I think that's got to do with it as well. If you take some big chunk out of your life, some big habit, you got to fill it up with something.
Something else I think that you just mentioned there, which I thought was brilliant. You said he started, he's in the boxing gym, and then he's also, he's coaching his kids' footy team. Something else that I think is very powerful for people who want to form a new habit is some degree of accountability to someone else. And I think that and when I say accountability, often people can, they have a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction that they don't want to be held accountable, and there's that emotional connection to it. But what I mean by that is somebody else is depending on you. And it's like, if there's ever, because you and I train, we roll together and what have you, and there's, from time to time, I have that same thing. It's like, oh, do I have to go train? I've just done my 17,000 steps. I've given everything I have in a training facility. It's like my clients are happy. I'm exhausted. I'm broken. But if I don't go and train, then, I'm letting somebody else down. And I think that peace of mind, and especially with your mate who's coaching his kids' footy team, if you're accountable to people who are depending on you, that's that added level of, okay, I've got to go and do it. I've got to, or I get to go and do it. And I think if you keep turning up, which again is an old mantra from the mats, it's like you keep turning up, you're going to get better. And I think soon, if people are depending on you to do it, I think that can be a great way of reinforcing that habit and that behavior as well, which is awesome.
Of course. We touched on it just before about how you pick me up for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
That's one thing. I remember I think you went away on holiday, you had work or something, and I rocked into jiu-jitsu by myself, and everyone was kind of looking at the door waiting for you, like, where's your buddy?
Yeah.
What's going on? Where's Paulie?
Yeah.
But yeah, the accountability thing, especially with habits, because no one sees your habits. No one sees you getting up early and working hard. No one sees me in the morning on the assault bike. No one sees me consuming the books and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to give it up because no one's watching.
Yeah.
You're accountable to someone. If you have to be there and pick someone up, or you have to go there and coach the footy team, or, you're meeting your friend somewhere, you always do this at the same time. Maybe there's a bit of a feeling you're letting that person down. And, most people don't want to, it's weird. I'll let myself down. No problems at all like that.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to, but you try your best. But he's waiting for me. I've got to go.
Yeah.
I've had a terrible day. I'm down. I'm out. I'm not this. I don't want to do this. Oh, I've got to go to Toastmasters. Oh, I'm supposed to do my icebreaker speech and talk table topics. They're waiting on me. I said I'd go. I got to go.
Yeah.
Just got to do it, and try and do it before you think about it too much.
Absolutely. Otherwise, you'll find a legitimate excuse not to do it. Yeah.
I got plenty of those. Habits is Atomic Habits was a good book. That taught me a lot. And there was another good book. I don't know if I get taught a lot by them, but it kind of brings things to light that I kind of subconsciously maybe already know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And you hear sometimes the same lesson, but in slightly different contexts. And often that can just really reinforce it for you as well, which is awesome.
Yeah, like math. People are talking about math, and you're looking at the board wondering what everyone else is saying.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, bang, the light comes on and everything makes sense. Like it was always there. That kind of thing. Habits is a big one. I'm not sure people put enough emphasis on it.
I think a lot of time people see the outcomes that they get and they're not happy with the outcomes, but they have to, look at the habitual process. I think that's like a classic example of weight loss. It's like if I'm 30 kilograms overweight, that's my outcome. But it's like, okay, what am I doing to accumulate that? And here's what I reckon as well is, and this is something I'm thinking about all the time when I'm training clients. It's like, if my North Star is to get better outcomes for clients, to support them to get better outcomes, is how do I get somebody to fall in love with the process of becoming somebody who can get those better outcomes, And we have this thing with leadership when I'm training my leaders. A lot of my leaders, we talk about something called the 3-second rule. I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but nothing to do with dropping food on the floor. But it says that if you have at least 3 seconds with somebody, you have to make sure they leave your company in a better frame of mind than when they came into it. And that means that people get that little feel-good feeling, whether you want to call it dopamine or serotonin release or whatever it is. But if we can find a way to get people to love the process of learning, so they come in, they interact in the training, they learn, they take on some learning, they leave feeling better about themselves, then effectively, I think that can very often become some degree of falling in love with the process of the work we do, and that'll help you get those better outcomes as well. It's fascinating because I think that if you can get people to feel good about what they do, then very often they'll keep doing it. And if you keep doing anything long enough, you're going to get good at it. Actually, something's just come to me. I don't know if you've read this book called The Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Have you read Outliers?
No.
Now, somebody watching this might pull me up on this, but effectively, and I might butcher the explanation now, but what he does is he talks about outliers, and these are people who get extraordinary results. They're normal people who get extraordinary results. And what he basically boils it down to is the 10,000 hour rule. So if you do something 10,000 hours, that's where you get mastery from. And what he was talking about, interestingly enough, was he was talking about how kids born in a certain time of the year become more successful in sport than other kids. And what he was doing was he was talking about, I think, if memory serves, and folks, for you, those of you listening to me, if I butcher this, then due note on this. But he was talking about hockey players, hockey teams, and he was noticing that the vast majority of professional hockey players were born in a certain in a certain time of the year. And I'm wanting to say September to October or November or something like that. September to November. Maybe I'm wrong with those dates. But what he was talking about, and if I remember correctly, was that the kids who were born later in the year, it meant that they were a little bit older, a few months older than the other kids in their age category. Because effectively, so if you start playing hockey at say under 6 or under 9 or whatever it is, if you have those extra 3 or 4 months ahead of another kid that you're competing against, but you've got 3 or 4 months advantage over them, there's a little bit more development in those areas. And what he was talking about was those kids who were born later on and had those 3 or 4 month advantage or 6 month advantage or 9 month advantage or 11-month advantage, they were physically developed a little bit more than their competitors. And because of that, they were better at the sport they were doing. And because of that, they were getting positive reinforcement from the coaches and being told that they were good ice hockey players. And what the thought process was, and again, it was a long time ago I read this book, but what he was talking about was that little advantage that you have there, again, just with the years, and let's leave genetic predisposure to being good at hockey or having your whole family as being hockey players or something like that, which would have an impact, I'm sure. He was talking about that early physical advantage, which then led to them getting slightly better results, which then led to positive reinforcement from the coaching staff, led these kids to start enjoying hockey at a higher level. And again, if you can get somebody to enjoy what they're doing, by default, they're going to get the outcome. They're going to get the outcome regardless. And I think very often, and I see this so much in the workplace environment, it's like everybody says to me, all the leaders say they want to cultivate a growth mindset mentality. Okay, so people have got this growth mindset. They believe they can learn new skill sets, they can shift the way they think, they can get those better outcomes, etc., etc., etc. But if you can get people to fall in love with the process of learning, I think by default, that will naturally develop that growth mentality, that growth mindset in that situation as well. So if you start enjoying what you do, then good things come from there. And I think being able to focus, I think what we do as far as focusing, what we focus on tends to get us to enjoy things more or less. I don't know, maybe I'm on a rant, but I think also human beings, we're very good at noticing the things that we don't like in something rather than what we do like. You ask somebody what they want in life, and it's probably easier for them, unless they're good at some thought, it's probably easier for them to tell you what they don't want rather than what they do want. And again, I think that comes down to how human brains potentially could be negatively hardwired as well. We're hardwired to notice the negative way ahead of the positive.
That true. I think one thing in the process as well is what you touched on, where when you said those kids who were born at the right time and were slightly ahead would be slightly in front, and the coaches would notice that and give them positive reinforcement. And I think that's a big step too, because when you're doing something and no one's noticing and you're doing it over and over and over again, it's like, and you're not getting anything out of it. Oh, what am I bothering for? Well, but if you get, especially in leadership, if you're going to lead some teams and you want that growth mindset, it's just got to be the little things. Someone starts changing little things, dude, well done.
Yeah.
And you get, yourself, you get that little bit of positivity, away you go. There's, that felt good. Let's keep going on this. Let's see where that can lead to. With me, I think I was accidental in getting Chris Voss, because it was something that I could pretty much implement straight away, like his mirroring or use of the word, like using, how am I supposed to do that? Or themes like this. And it was little things like that you think are stupid. Like, oh, dude, as soon as I say this, they're going to see right through it. And all of a sudden they don't.
They don't.
Especially with mirroring. It's like a superpower. I try not to use it too much. But you can tangent people along quite well with mirroring. And I've always believed, before I started all this, I always believe that if you could get someone talking and make that connection, get them talking long enough, I would always say they'll say too much. I always notice that in conversations that I had with people who may be very private people or didn't talk about this much, I could get them to talk about it. After a while, I don't know how, and I never bothered using it. I'd never use it for bad. I'd never use it against anyone, but I was always quite amazed by that. And then I read Chris Voss's book, and I'm like, oh, I can do that already.
Yeah. Mate,
So
you have a phenomenal that's one of the reasons I said to look into getting to what you're getting into, man, because it's very, very rare. And I work with a lot of people, man. It's very rare that I find people who've got a natural inclination towards engaging with people like you do, but also the enjoyment and the genuine desire to add value to somebody else's life, mate. You know,
yeah,
and I think you're very authentic with it, you know, and you see in business a lot of the time, a lot of clients are aware of this, and they're terrified of, you know, if somebody's being nice to them, it's like, well, is there something else going on here? You know, am I being
yeah,
set
what do
up
they
for
want
something?
from me? That kind of thing.
Exactly. And you know, the amount of leaders that want to come to training because they want to be deemed as more authentic, which is awesome. But then we go into the sort of the details of being authentic and what makes somebody authentic, and it's quite a quite base level stuff. You know, it's like with regards to alignment, and I think it genuinely comes down to, you know, believing what you say and wanting the best outcomes for other people. And I think that ties into the labeling that we often get with regards to, or the leaders get particularly, and great speakers get with regards to being charismatic. You know, because it's going to be very difficult to be deemed as charismatic by somebody if you're not aligned with what you're saying. You know,
Yes. Yeah.
which is
I've just finished a good book on body language,
okay.
which is probably the second or third one I've kind of done on body language, just from different points of view. And um, it's easy to pick up on when someone, I won't say lying, but when their body's not aligned with what they're saying.
Yes.
It's and even down to your face, the way your feet are, just
Yeah.
how you're positioning, whether you're sitting still or wriggling around. So it's if you're trying to put on a front to inspire or lead people,
Yeah.
people are going to see through you. They really are, and it's got to be genuine. I believe you really got to have good foundations, like you talk about, and a good sense of direction of
Yeah.
what you want, genuine sense of direction, and genuine wanting to help people,
Absolutely.
which I think is
Absolutely.
one of the key things.
I think a body language is one of those things where a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. But
Yes.
you're quite right. And what I mean by that, and again, when I'm training presenters, particularly presenters, this is a negotiator as well, but presenters more so, is when they are talking about you, looking at your audience, and if they see somebody in the audience who's got their arms crossed. Now, knowing a little bit of information about body language is a dangerous thing, because if people, and it's very clear to see what people are doing. So if somebody crosses their arms, then the thought process could be, oh, the little bit of knowledge in body language is effectively, oh, they're closed off to what I'm saying. They're obviously not interested. But I might just be sitting with my arms crossed because I'm comfortable like this, or I'm cold, or something like that. But here's what happens. Presenter often sees somebody with their arms crossed and then thinks, oh my goodness, what I'm saying is not connecting with this person. Then they get that negative self-talk and they get into that negative downward spiral. Whereas meanwhile, it wasn't me crossing my arms because I'm not interested, but it's me crossing my arms because I'm comfortable sitting like that, or because it's cold, or, you know, I want to move forward because my back's hurting, or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's dangerous, because a lot of the time people think, okay, well, I can see their arms are crossed. But as you would know, I'm sure from reading, you know, the book, it's like, when it comes to true body language analysis, we're looking for confirming factors. So
Yes.
it's not just the arms crossed; it's the feet, it's maybe looking out the window, it's the huffing and puffing.
Yeah. And like you said, it's got to be put into context with that person. That person
Absolutely.
might naturally feel comfortable with a scowl on their face because they
Yeah.
have to concentrate.
Yeah.
Maybe they fidget with their hands or something, so they're keeping it solid. And it's got to be, yeah, everyone's different, but it's, you know, the general stuff, general factors, and put two or three
Absolutely.
together. Don't just decide that because his arms are crossed, he doesn't like what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Try to
What
be
you
as
said I thought was
charitable.
interesting. Yeah, exactly. What I thought you said was interesting there, though, because when you were telling that story about you're sitting there presenting and you got one person sitting there with their arms crossed. I pictured a room of 100 people that you're presenting to. You've got one person with your arms crossed. And what I thought exactly what you were saying was, I'm delivering a message to 99 people positively, and yet my brain picks up on that one person.
Absolutely.
with his arms crossed, and I immediately go down that spiral.
Yeah.
Because we're like programmed to pick up on the negative.
Yeah.
Instead of going, oh, well, I'm not getting through to that person, but I'm getting through to 99. That's a big percentage. Let's just go with that. I think people do that as well. It's easy to pick out that negative. But I know I do it. I'll admit to this. Easy to pick out the negative on anything and then go, oh, this isn't working. This
Absolutely.
isn't right. What am I doing wrong here? So is that something you find when you train people, or
Absolutely.
when you do it yourself?
100%. And I have to make people very, very aware of it, because they see the one person crossing their arms, and yeah, it's one person, but it's like, and you know, you never know what that person, you never know what's actually going through that person's head. But yeah, it does. You think it's like one person. It's like, oh my goodness. And especially with presenting, because you would know from Toastmasters, you're so exposed, you feel so sort of exposed out there. The smallest little negative reaction, you know, you can take it quite personally.
Yes.
Until you start realizing that people act in different ways.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you this, cuz I got to tell you this story, man. There was this beautiful, beautiful client of mine, just such a phenomenal person. And she came to one of my negotiating workshops, and she was sitting at the back right. I can still see her now. Sitting at the back right, and it was a one-day negotiation workshop, and everything I was saying, she was giving me like looks like it's like, and I'm thinking, oh, here we go. It's like what I'm saying is certainly not landing. But it wasn't to a degree where I felt that I needed to sort of have a catch up with her or anything like that. But there was facial expressions that were not conducive to what you would normally expect from somebody who's fully engaged. And anyway, there was maybe 15 people in the room with the training, and we got to the end of the training, and everybody left, and she was waiting there. She was filling out the feedback forms and stuff like that. I thought, oh, here we go. And she got up, and she came and had a conversation with me. And she goes, Paul, could I have a word, please? I said, yeah, absolutely. You know, how did you go? What can I help you with? And she literally started breaking down, crying, saying to me, it was like the stuff I was sharing with her had given her completely different reframes on different things. And I said, you're joking, aren't you? I thought you were sort of, you know, stuff I was saying was, you know, you didn't like it, you didn't align with it. She goes, no, not at all. Everything you were saying was just hitting in those different levels, where it's like it was giving me these breakthroughs. And I almost got quite emotional about it as well, because I'm thinking, oh God, you know, it's like I'm thinking worst case scenario here. And after that, then I always say be as charitable as you can with your interpretations until proven wrong. And you know, and it was like she said the stuff that you were saying just was making breakthroughs for me, which were just absolutely phenomenal. And it's like I see things differently now. And I thought about it, like, goodness, it was like, how could I have potentially been so wrong when you teach the stuff as well? And then I tell you, and I know I sound like I'm plugging Malcolm Gladwell's books here, but he wrote a book as well called Talking with Strangers, which is effectively when you're communicating with people who, I think he uses the term mismatches. And in that, what he means by that is people who don't always act in the way you would expect them to act in a circumstance. So if I'm presenting and it's making sense to you, you would stereotypically think somebody's nodding their head, smiling and saying, yes, that's good, and giving you the thumbs up. But it's like, but yeah, when I read that book, it was like, oh my goodness, that's something that really sad. And I'll never forget that. It was like, she waited till the end. I thought, oh goodness, here we go. It's I'm going to get an earful about something I've said or what have you. And it was just like, it was one of the most beautiful moments I've had. So blessed to have so many beautiful moments in training with so many people just getting those breakthroughs, you know. But it was like a huge breakthrough for me as well, which was cool. So yeah, from then on in, I want to work with people, get that professional self-esteem to the right place, so they don't battle with imposter syndrome or limiting beliefs or anything like that. And then from there, they can be much more charitable with their interpretation of other people's behavior until proven wrong. There we go.
I have come across a couple of people like that, or probably a few, where the feedback you're getting isn't matching. Something's wrong here. And
Yeah.
it's for a multitude of different reasons. The amount of times that I've bumped into guys and girls, but mostly guys being on sites, and they're not themselves. And it's not until you get through the conversation, luckily you picked up such a good relationship with them, that you're able to maybe ask a couple of questions. You realize they've had a real bad day at home, or something else is going on, and what you're trying to deliver to them is just bouncing off that brick wall.
Yeah.
So yeah, putting everything in context with the person, it might be hard if you've never met them before, like for instance you, where you're sitting there and she's giving you all different feedback. But yeah, body language has definitely got to be put into context. Like
Absolutely. You know who I think is one of the sharpest with this, cuz is and this is going to make you laugh. And anybody listening to this, you're going to think we've lost our heads here. When it comes to being able to tell if somebody's aligned or not with what they're saying, there is someone I've seen operate, and she is just on a completely different level. And when she comes to a situation where she's telling whether people are aligned with what they're saying, telling the truth, or not aligned with what they're saying, she has maybe 5 to 15 minutes to assess what's going on here with these people. And she might see maybe, let's take a guess here, 10 different people in a day. Do you have any idea who I'm talking about in this situation?
Hairdresser.
No. No, even more intense than that.
More intense?
More intense.
Okay. More intense, maybe like an ER nurse or something like that.
I like that, but no. Mate, you're going to fall off your chair on this one.
Hit me.
Judge Judy.
Judge Judy. Oh my God.
Now, here's what Judge Judy does. You watch Judge Judy. For those of you watching, you just fall off your chair thinking I've lost it. Maybe I have. Anyway, Judge Judy has, maybe she would see 10 people in any one day. She's got, I don't know all the editing and stuff like that, but she sees a fair number of people. And you would know anytime you as you get to know lots and lots of people, you start to look for little traits and stuff like that. But here's what I think Judge Judy does. I think you will see the first few questions she always asks people is questions that there will be no reason to do anything but tell the truth. Okay. So she'd ask your age, where you come from, what area you live in, what work you do, etc., etc., etc. Now, what I think she's doing is she is setting and she's watching the reactions, and she'll always say things like, look at me here, look at me. And she'll, when they're like looking away, what have you, what I think is she's trying to assess a baseline of behavior. So she, when you're telling the truth and when you're not telling the truth. So when she's sitting there and she's asking these questions that people got no reason to do anything but tell the truth in, of course, there's going to be nerves early on as well, which we have to work through to some degree. But she's setting baseline with regards to what are the physiological reactions that people are having in that moment when they're telling the truth. What's the body language saying from there? And then they start getting into it. And they ask these questions on both sides, and then they start getting into it. And any variation from that baseline, I think that's when she starts getting suspicious. That's what I reckon. I don't know for sure, but that is what Judge Judy can tell you about authenticity.
She, I was going to say, she sounds like she's setting base questions on a polygraph test.
Yeah.
And they're simple questions, and then you can see from there the reactions on everyone.
Imagine having Judge Judy as a mother. You wouldn't get away with anything, would you?
I did. She was cracking. My mum just look at you, this little thing looking at you, little person looking at you with those eyes as you try. Oh, Mum, I can't lie to you. So
yeah,
the body language, habits, it all seems to come under that self imposter syndrome that we keep referring back to as well. Bumped into that a couple of times this week. Bumped into a couple of real big leadership decisions and things like that on the job, good and bad, both sides. But while we're on the topic of habits, I think one of the big things is the little voice, the inner self-talk, and all the fears. I think that plays a big part in habits as well. I know especially when I started running, it took me a while to get my brain on board.
Yep.
The excuses it would make to try and get out of running, because it knew it was horrible. Not the bad thing. The thing about exercise is it's the opposite of drugs, where you take the drug, you feel good, then you feel terrible. With exercising, you feel terrible while you're doing it, then you feel real good afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
getting to there is the hard bit, and the brain doesn't want to go there. It wants you to sit on the couch and be comfortable. And the mitigating that self-talk and trying to change shift the paradigm and change what I'm thinking about, and spend most of my time fighting my brain. Was a big thing. And I know that a lot of people in business suffer from it, especially around the imposter syndrome and the fears that they hold, whether it's just that they shouldn't be there, or that they could be found out, or they're not up to scratch. And I'm not sure, especially in professional people and people who have got their degrees and got their qualifications and have earned their right to be there, whether it's through university or through their career. I was amazed when I found out. I know of people who work for the government who are right up near the top, and massive imposter syndrome, massive complex about. And I think to myself, how's that possible? Is it something that's slowly come along? Is it like a bad habit that slowly snuck in and starts to cripple them, or what? I really don't understand that. I mean, I'm very aware of it. I'm where I'm going to go with my career. I am making sure that I keep a very close eye on that. I don't want to go into an area that I don't feel comfortable in, because then I think that'll have bad consequences for me. So even in confidence, which I think is a big one. So is that something that you've obviously spent some time thinking and talking around this topic? We'll just touch it lightly because it's huge. I think it's really big. I think the factors behind it are just unfathomable. But is there a few quick things you can give us that'll help?
Mate, firstly, I think that imposter syndrome is a byproduct of something that impacts maybe 95% of people that I work with in business. Absolutely. I think that the vast majority of people, 95% of people, battle with that imposter syndrome to some degree at some stage. But I think it's a byproduct of a deeper problem. And I think that deeper problem is we underestimate the value we bring to the table. That's it. And again, this is something I talk about a huge amount. But the thing is remember this: whatever we focus on dictates how we feel, and how we feel dictates our frame of mind. Frame of mind dictates our actions. Actions dictate outcomes. So everything we focus on dictates how we feel about the work we do. Now, here's my belief. You and I and everybody else watching this right now, listening to this right now, we've done things that we're proud of, and we've done things professionally that we're proud of, and we've done things professionally where we've really messed up, okay? And we can think back to both of those. If we're honest with ourselves, or we're coached using coaching questions, we can find both of those. Problem is, the human brain has the ability to focus on the negative more than the positive. So the thing is, and here's the truth of the matter, mate. If I keep you focused on times that you've messed up, you're going to think you're not good enough in what you do. 100%. So effectively, this is a foundation for everything, because with any degree of training, people think they want to come to workshops to learn strategies, techniques, and understandings. Yes, they do. Of course they do. But the thing is unless you get rid of that imposter syndrome, or at least start reducing that imposter syndrome, and build what I call good professional self-esteem, and you see the value that you bring, all of these strategies, techniques, and understandings is for nothing. Why? Because if you battle with the imposter syndrome and you have a confrontational type of argument, you're going to go to fight or flight. You're going to get overwhelmed very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Because of that, you can't think clearly. You lose that 31% cognitive ability to be able to use those flashy strategies, techniques, and understandings. So without a shadow of a doubt, mate, if I can, what I do, and I put this work in, man, I break the whole thing down with regards to exactly how do I get people to start seeing the value that they bring, start really making part of their reality, and that increases that professional self-esteem, and the confidence comes with it. And then from there, effectively starts to reduce that imposter syndrome. Why? Because that imposter syndrome is that negative self-talk that's in your voice all the time. It's talking to you. But here's what happens. When you start killing out or drowning that negative self-talk by feeding the positive talk, that effectively it gets quieter and quieter and quieter. And it's like there's a Native American proverb, something along the lines of the eve before battle. There's a young warrior goes to the chieftain and says, "Chieftain, listen, I'm terrified about the battle tomorrow." And the chieftain says, "Yeah, you're feeding the bad wolf." And he goes, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, inside of us, there's two wolves that are always fighting for control of us. There's the good wolf and the bad wolf. The good wolf tells you all the good things you can do, and it makes you be your own best mate effectively. And the bad wolf tries to bring you down and tell you how you're going to be fallible and bad things are going to happen. And these two wolves are always fighting each other." And he goes, and then the warrior says, "Well, which wolf wins?" And he goes, "Whichever one you feed." Now, here's the thing. The way that you feed a wolf is dictated by what you focus on, what you put in your eyes and your ears, who you surround yourself with. If you start building that focus onto the good value that you bring, and there's exercises, there's physical, practical applications that I train my clients, and a lot of them listening to this right now will know exactly what I'm talking about. But you can actually start feeding that good wolf in a good way. And effectively, what starts happening then is people start having a much higher degree of confidence. And self-sabotage is another one. I think self-sabotage is right there with imposter syndrome. But again, they feed off the same thing. Because again, if I have the self-sabotaging, I believe, comes down to the belief that human beings have to be consistent with how they perceive themselves on a subconscious basis. So what do I mean by that? If I'm working in selling, let's just say selling, and selling, because people can maybe understand the concept as an extreme. If I believe I'm only a 10 unit a month salesman, only 10 units, I'll sell 10 units, then that's all I'm worth. That's what I'm worth. That's that perception I've got. If I sell 15 units next month, it's like, oh, now I'm slightly out of kilter with how I perceive myself on a subconscious basis. So what happens the next month? I start self-sabotaging myself to bring myself back to where I was originally. Until you start shifting how you perceive yourself. And guys, I'm going to tell you this as well. It's not just on a logical basis, it's on an emotional basis. Yes. I can't just say, see the value you bring. I have to give you those foundations, that training, which of course is the bedrock of everything we do. But as soon as you start doing that, man, everything changes. It really does. And you can start setting your goals for bigger and better things. But this is why it's like the analogy of the flea in the jar, the flea in the jar scenario. Yes. So you got, for those of you who haven't heard it before, the thought process is, if you've got a flea, put a flea in a jar, you put the cap on the jar, the flea will jump up and hit its head on the top of the jar. And after a while, the flea will only jump to just below the jar, the lid of the jar. If you take the lid off, the flea will never jump out. And I think that happens with human beings as well. We get to a certain level, we think that's my limit. But the human being is, we have no concept of what we're capable of, and that's when you find these people, and a lot of them, they, might be labeled as psychopaths and sociopaths, or have narcissistic traits or what have you, because they don't believe that they have, the same, they don't put the same mental limits on themselves that everybody else does. Yeah. And, depending on how you define those terms, there might be a fair few people with those types of, those types of approaches. But the number one thing, without a shadow of a doubt, if I'm going to help a client get better outcomes, is I have to get them to see the value they bring. That's it. And I've literally seen people within 1 month start carrying themselves with a completely different level of energy. So I had one client who came in at the beginning of the month, and then at the end of the month, and at the beginning of the month, he was very reserved, very, very, wouldn't even make eye contact, that type of stuff, very and he came into a fast thinking workshop. So you want to be able to think quickly and say the right thing and what have you. Came in at the beginning of the month, and he carried himself with a certain energy, very reserved, wouldn't make eye contact, almost, I would have said maybe battled with anxiety and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure of that, and sort of overwhelmed. Month later, he came walking into another workshop that I ran. I didn't even recognize him because he was carrying himself with a completely different level of energy.
Wow.
I mean, salespeople, there was a salesman that I was working with who was at the bottom of his leaderboard. So there was 15 people in his team, and obviously all the salespeople they're ranked, with regards to your scores in the month and where you are. And he was always coming in at 14 or 15. As soon as we made a shift, and that was November of 2020, by February 2021, he was in the top 3, and he's never left the top 3 since then.
Wow. So that sales, I read, I think it was 7 or 8 books you recommended to me, all around sales and negotiation, communication and stuff like that. And then you blew me away because I asked you for your next book recommendation, and you said to me, you've done them all. That's it. You've now got, according to the research, you've now had more training than 90-something% of the salespeople out there today in Australia and New Zealand. And I couldn't believe that. To me, you're joking. What? And I always go back over, which I think is a big thing. You said to me, go back over the material, go back over the book again. I'm like, I've read it. What are you talking about? Then I went back and read, I think it was Chris Voss's book. And because I picked up so much more because of where I was when I first read the book. I moved along to here. Everything had changed. So when I reread the book, other stuff stuck out. Sometimes, I don't know if you do it when you're an audio book, you kind of go into just, you float away a little bit.
Let it float over
you.
Absolutely.
All of a sudden, something pops out. You got to rewind it a bit. I found that I was rewinding and stopping all the way through Vossi's book the second time, writing down stuff that I hadn't even thought of that had just fallen away, different points of view. That was huge for me. But I couldn't, especially with sales, I don't understand well, not so much sales. I like to know not a lot about a subject, but if I'm out there doing it, or I'm part of it, or I want to get into it, I need a base level of knowledge. I need to know a fair bit about it before I go. What it looks like, how's it going to smell, where we're going, what's the end goal kind of. It doesn't have to be a precise goal. It's just we're heading in that direction. If you're not getting that, I can't understand how you can be really effective. Like, obviously there's natural talents, and you get a spiel and introduced to the company, and you've got this, but this is how you sell to people. This is what we do. But I think you're doing yourself an injustice if you're not making yourself the best you can be.
Mate, honestly, the thing is, I think the truth of the matter is, I think it's a very small minority of business. I think it's a very small minority of businesses who are consistently training people, okay, and really have set a budget for training. I think it's even a smaller amount of people who will take on their own, like what you're doing, their own personal professional development. And by that, I mean, it's not formal. They'll read audiobooks, they'll just go through their own learning and stuff like that. But this is why it's such a beautiful thing to work with people who have got that growth mindset. They're open to learning, which is one of the greatest blessings in the work I do. It really is. But I also think that there's a lot of people out there who are not aware of professional development. And from time to time I come across them. From time to time, and I always go around my workshops, and I'll say to people, this is terrible to say, but so often I find it people who've been in quite senior positions for some degree of time, and I ask everybody what specifically they want to take away. I'm just here to brush up on, learn anything new. It's like, okay, that's sort of a rough translation for you've got it all sorted, okay? And when I have salespeople like that, it's just like they're trying to be polite to say to me that it's like, listen, mate, you can't tell me anything I don't know. And it's like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
But you know, inevitably, obviously, what I need to be able to do is I need to open people up so they're open to the learning. Otherwise, you might as well be sowing seed on rock there. But I think there's a lot of people who are just not aware of professional development. And honestly, I think it's an absolute key to happiness, because I genuinely believe that your self-esteem goes up when you feel like you're evolving. I think very often there's people who are caught in comfort zones, and make no bones about it, the human being wants to stay in a comfort zone, absolutely. Physically, because you know the number one drive is the drive to survive. So if we stay in a comfort zone, we've got that, you know, we can control all these entities. But I think at the self-esteem that you gain and how good you feel about yourself when you take on a challenge that's outside of your area of control, that's where I think we really start to feel good about what we do. And, you know, I mean, we could get into a deeper conversation with this with regards to having a high level of resiliency, because you go through daily challenges that are way outside your comfort zone, and how people, you know, how people feel about themselves as well. I think because there's a lot of talk about resiliency right now in the business world, and how to make more people more resilient. If you're not getting outside your comfort zone, it's very difficult to enhance resiliency. Yes, you can do things like self-care and look after yourself and all of that good stuff, which I'm hoping people are doing. But if we're going to build people who are literally going to smash through goals of their industry, which is what I want to do, we're going to have to take on some challenges. And here's the thing: when staying the same becomes more scary than anything that's outside your comfort zone, you become absolutely unstoppable. And that's one of the things I really want for clients. I want them to enjoy that process of learning, and the getting those aha moments, and the thinking, and them thinking, if I can do this, and 3 years ago I was terrified of doing it, but I've been able to achieve it, what else am I capable of doing?
Absolutely.
And that's when the shackles come off, man. That's when the shackles come off.
There's a massive confidence boost from that. And
yes,
it can be accidental. Like you can accidentally get uncomfortable, get yourself out of it, and you'll go, sit back and go, whoa, was that me?
Yeah.
It's the old one of like you got to go traveling, you've got to go and get lost so you can find yourself. I don't think it's finding yourself. I think it's improving yourself and knowing that you can get your way around the city, get lost, take care of yourself, come back. You know, you've got confidence in being able to care for yourself and take care for yourself. One thing you did touch on there with professional development.
Yeah.
Now, we've been bouncing backwards and forwards on the whole blue collar motivations, especially you made it very difficult for me. You wanted the insight. You made it very difficult for me because you asked me the general question and you say, all right, now how do we keep blue collar motivated when we take away money or incentives like bonuses? If you take that out, what are blue collar looking for? Is it the same as white collar? And I think there's definitely crossovers. There's definite I don't think it's too far apart. I think it's very similar in a lot of ways. One of the things you did touch on though was professional self-development, and how there's so few companies who are willing to invest in training for their employees, and I think that's a big one for employees of blue collar. I will say, because a lot of people get stagnant in their role. A lot of people just show up to work. This is all I'm going to be.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be a forklift driver, or I'm going to be a welder, or I just do this in the company. There was a young guy on the mats over Christmas, and he was shocked when he found out I was a carpenter. I was a carpenter for years, and Kobe, I think his name is, he qualifies in about 8 months, about at the end of the year, I think. And he actually asked me the question. He's like 18 or 19. He said to me, what's some tips you can give me about my career? And I said to him, look, I'll be honest, don't stop learning. That's one of the biggest mistakes I made. I thought I knew it all, but don't stop learning, even if it's skills or something you may not need. So for example, where I am at the moment, I've got quite a few high risk tickets, and a high risk ticket is everything from forklift driving through to driving cranes and excavators and everything in between. I slowly upgraded each time, each year. So the first year was the hardest because you got to pay for the ticket.
Yeah.
You get it back in tax the next year. Well, you don't get it back in tax. That's the wrong way of saying it. You get it off your tax.
Yeah.
But then that opens up more roles. Oh, you're a forklift driver, you could jump on that.
Yeah.
Then you go and get the next ticket. Maybe it's an EWP ticket, for example. You got a forklift ticket and you can go up in we could use you here. So it opens up, one of your favorite sayings is more opportunities. So I think one of the big motivations for blue collar is knowing that your employer is going to help you get better. I don't think there's a better. I'm always a couple of times I've been lucky enough to have my employer pay for my skill.
Yeah.
And the current I'm at, they paid for me to become a truck driver. Now, anyone who know, not a lot of people know, but 10 years ago, I got cleaned up by a truck on the freeway.
Yeah.
I was nervous around them for years. 10
Yeah.
years later, nearly to the day, I'm actually driving a truck by myself past a spot where I got cleaned up. So
Phenomenal. Wow.
that was a massive learning experience. But
I'm sure.
for me, there's no greater an employer paying for me, my time, and paying for the course for me to have a skill for the rest of my life. Come on, that's something that I think is awesome. I think that's a real privilege, and there should be more of it because I really think it motivates people. Like if as your employer, if I want to give you something that's going to make you better, regardless of the outcome for me, it's going to make you better, and I'm willing to pay for you to do that. If that's not motivating, if that doesn't make you want to work for that person or even your own career, just push harder, then that's something that's got to be looked at. I think that's a big one.
Here's something to think about, cuz on that basis, because I agree with you, mate. I 100% agree with you. Here's the challenge. It's I think more companies and all companies would be more than happy to invest in training as long as they could see some degree of ROI, so return on investment. Yeah. Now, the thing is, from a morale point of view, it's not always easy to track that. From sales, it's absolutely easy to track that. It's like, what were they doing at the beginning of this month, at the end of this month? And if you can show how it's something tangible and translate that back into the financial and time investment as well, because of course there's time away for everybody be off the tools or off the road or not serving customers or whatever it is. How do we quantify it, and how can we actually show a return on that? I think that's a big question, because again, if I'm fortunate in a position where there's a lot of people, just because I know a lot of people, and there's a lot of word of mouth, people reaching out to get me to do training and get us to do training and what have you. But I think if I was starting out in business and wanting to get into training, I would need to put a unique selling point together with regards to a tangible way that people could see a return on their business, on their investment. And I think that's something to think about, because I think in different industries, and obviously with the plans that we've got moving forward, and the work I'm really keen to see you doing as well, I think that there's a big conversation to be had around that, for real.
Yeah.
I believe that the vast majority of people are open-minded enough, particularly in business, particularly in successful business. When I say successful business, I think even after COVID, with a lot of industries, anybody who's still surviving after COVID, because COVID was just was brutal. It was more brutal in some industries than others, certainly. But people had to adapt. There was that growth mindset that had to take place there as well. And as I said, a lot of industries got just absolutely hammered. But I think any businesses that are forward moving and reasonably successful, doing well in their sector against their competitors, I think that they would be open to training. I think the challenge is what is the return we're getting from this? And I think if you're, and this goes for anybody out there, folks, if you're listening to this and you want something from somebody, even if it's just you want to catch up with them for a coffee to pick their brain over something, or you want to make a hard-nosed sale, you have to answer that question: what's in it for me? Can you tell me, if I pay you 15, 20 grand for training, what's my return from that? Or how can I gauge it? Or how have your other clients gauged it? Because I think sometimes people want to be able to buy, but they need to be able to justify it. And very often they need to be able to justify it to head of finance or CEO or MD or whatever it is.
Yeah. exactly. And yeah, well, in the construction industry, sometimes I get very frustrated because to me, people that it's not like they're staying in business for a long time. It's like they're finishing up this week. It's literally like that's what I think their mindset is. It's like they're in business, but it's like they want to screw everyone over to get as much as they can right now. I don't care about next week. I want right now. And I see it so much. And, you know, I thought the whole, I might be wrong here, I might be crazy, but I thought the whole idea was to stay in business. Relationships, let's stay in business. Let's see how far we can go. Keep this thing alive. Form good relationships. They're not always going to be good times. There's going to be some bad times with clients and people are going to say no. You're going to move on. You'll come back to them. Keep the relationship good, and who knows where it's going to go. But that's what I'm faced with. One of the other questions I want to ask you is retention of staff through training. In your experience, a company that tends to say show the love and train up their staff and be willing to risk that ROI.
Yeah.
Do they retain their staff more than not? Is there some figures around that you can give us a little bit of a look at?
And not figures that I've got off the top of my head. There is one reference I can make to with regards to successive teams. But what I will say is that there are a lot of businesses who are looking at retaining and attracting top level talent because they know a lot of the time that if they've got top level talent or they want to attract top level talent, very often these are people who've got growth mindsets, what we might call those growth mindsets. So they are people who are resilient. They're people who are able to learn new skills. They've got a positive sort of outlook on things as well, broadly speaking. And if a business can say, listen, we can match what you're currently paying, but also we have what you're currently getting, or whatever the financial aspect is. Plus we have this, plus we have this, plus we have this, plus we can assure you that you get 3 years of training, 3 days of training a year, or what have you. That's going to be a little bit more of a sweetener because a lot of these people who are top talent, a lot of them are, always looking at learning new things, always, even at the top of their game. I think an addiction to learning like that is good. The other thing I'll say is this, is whenever I'm looking at high performing teams and, building high performing teams, so going into a business and being able to assess, okay, we're going to take this team now. They're currently doing X. We want them to do X plus Y. Okay. It's how do we actually start developing a high performing team and training around that a lot of the time, particularly with regards to getting people to see the value they bring and how they're dependent on each other. That can start forming or start reducing the friction in the team and start actually creating a high degree of harmony when people start working more together. Because what actually starts happening is if you start seeing the value that you bring, you start feeling good about it. I see a lot of friction that happens in the workplace environment because people become reactive. They become reactive to any feedback is an attack on them, okay? Because again, that professional self-esteem is not where it could be. So when you have these teams that work well together and can be built to work well together, and people are effectively, we're using infrastructures to actually build that, then effectively what starts to happen is that team becomes effectively an entity. Now, here's the interesting thing. There is a book, and this was recommended to me by one of the heads of ANZ Bank when I was doing some work with them down in Docklands. I forget the name of the book. It's something about stars, shooting stars or something like that. But it was with regards to headhunting in the financial services. So I think it was based in the US. It was a long time ago I read the book. But in the US, they were talking about headhunting particular people in financial services. And I think we're talking about banking. We're talking about maybe it might have been investment funds as well. But within any industry, people get reputations. I'm sure everybody listening to this right now, people have reputations. And there was a big discussion over, do we headhunt individuals? So you've got a particular individual, an investment manager who's doing this, and this. Let's go and pick out that absolute, that absolute golden star. The term star was in there. Let's get that star, bring them in, and there'll be a star for us. And the fascinating thing was they were headhunting individuals, bring the individuals in, and these individuals then absolutely tanked it. They absolutely tanked. They didn't do very well at all. And the whole argument and the basis of the premise of the book, if I can remember correctly, was that it's the team that makes that individual star. You might only see that one person in the limelight, but it's a whole support staff. So from there, what started to happen, and I saw this when I was working financial services in the UK, is a lot of these new entities that would start out and they wanted to go and headhunt, and they had maybe some venture capitalist money behind them, they would absolutely be looking to target teams rather than individuals, because they knew there was a better chance we can up and out that team, and effectively we've got a much stronger entity to use there, which is, again, that's a team that's taken years to knock each other into shape, and they all work well together now. Of course, I don't want it to take years for that whole thing to happen. I want to be able to shortcut that learning experience so that people can get those better outcomes at high performing team in a short amount of time. And that's obviously what we're looking at with the training.
Yeah, of course. And I've got a real good insight into that about teams and, or even personal stuff. If you try and integrate something new into a team, it slows the performance down.
Yep.
Of the whole team. Think about it for jiu-jitsu. You try and integrate a new part of a new move into your game. You concentrate on that, and it slows the rest of your game down, suffers for a while until that new move comes in. Now, where I work at the moment, we're a tight team. We do high risk stuff. There's a lot going on, a lot of dangerous stuff. When I first started with them, I couldn't believe how coordinated everything was in such a tight space. You got cranes, you got franners, you got trucks, you got access gear, knuckles, people walking everywhere, stuff tied off in ropes. To me, it was like, whoa. Now I'm part of that crew. We can smash it.
Yeah.
We lost a couple of guys last year. They went to other jobs, not lost, they left. And we've had new guys come in, and it's affected how fast and how efficient our crew works, because we're having to slow down and help these new guys.
Yeah.
Now, good guys. They know, they've got backgrounds. It's not like we're taking people off the street. We've got guys who've got qualifications. They are good in the industry. They've got all the knowledge. And to us, it doesn't mean zero, but it means you've got to work with us. You've got to get up on board with us. So it slows us down. We're trying to implement something new, slowing us down. Eventually, give it a week, give it 2 weeks, a month, whatever. All of a sudden, we start to gel again, and off we go.
Yeah.
But implement. So that's probably a good reason why they're picking up a whole team rather than one person.
Yeah.
You can pick that superstar out of that team, put them in another team, whether they go well or not is 50-50 at best.
And there's all the social dynamics of it as well, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe they've been together for a long time. Maybe they get along really well. Maybe they're like family. All of a sudden you've taken, now what? So taking that whole team and going, right, go and do that, probably a lot smarter, a lot more productive.
Yeah. Bigger investment as well, though, which is
monster investment, but
a huge investment. Yeah.
Let's look long term where you're going with it.
Absolutely. So, absolutely.
Good one.
Good one. But anyway, my man, I think that might draw to conclusion a fantastic Sunday morning. I really appreciate it.
Just about. You nearly got away with that one. You nearly got away, nearly slid out. Recommendations from you or a takeaway for our audience. Now, this is something we're going to do for all our podcasts and all our guests.
Beautiful. Yep.
Recommendations or a takeaway. Now, this can be anything from a book, a podcast. I know which one you're going to recommend. A restaurant, a hotel, food, travel, anything. Something that's on your plate this week, something that you'd like to share, anything off the cuff that you think might add a bit of value for someone out there. What do you got for us?
Listen, actually, no. I'm gonna give you something now, guys. I'm gonna give you something now.
Here we go.
And this is probably the last thing that anybody listening to would make a recommendation. One of the greatest things that have happened to me this year. Now, there's been a couple of great things that have happened to me. Few great things that have happened to me. But one of the greatest things that happened to me is I've stumbled onto a concept called earthing or grounding.
Oh, the mats,
The
the
mats. Absolutely.
grounding
Now,
sheet.
from a sleep point of view, now again, it was something I was thinking about. We have a conversation about this. I'm not sort of a health expert by any stretch of the imagination, as everybody can tell, but I am looking to make improvements and obviously get myself as fit and healthy as I possibly can. But sleep is obviously a big thing, and sleep apnea and stuff like that is something a lot of people battle with. It was something I was tested for as well, and got a machine and all that good stuff. And that helped me significantly. I'll give you some numbers here. When I did the sleep study, I think I was having 31 interruptions every hour. So it was interruptions in my sleep 31 times every hour. After I got the sleep apnea machine,
Interruptions meaning you wake
like
up.
stop breathing, or went
Oh,
from not stop breathing, but like woke up and then went back to sleep. Okay, so
bumped out of deep sleep kind of thing and into that.
it was not even, yeah, so it might have been light sleep. So my sleep was going to be a lot lighter overall than getting that deep REM sleep and the actual deep sleep as well. So I was getting 31 interruptions an hour, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
And then from there, I was going to less than 5 per hour. Okay, with a sleep apnea machine. So it was always below 5. And even there was times where it'd be below 1, which was good. So 0 point, X per number. With these grounding and earthing mats now, my sleep has gone through the roof. Last night I checked my machine. Effectively, I had 0.0 interruptions. I had no interruptions in my sleep, which was mind blowing. And I went to bed like a little bit later than normal, so I only got like 6 hours, which 6 hours good. But yeah, it's been a complete game changer. For anybody who's interested, you look into earthing and grounding, make your own decisions on it, folks. But that would be my top recommendation for today.
Mate, that's huge. That congratulations, that's monstrous, because I know you've been struggling with that for a little while now. Good friend of ours as well. He blew them away with his results. They couldn't believe it was still balloons are back. Sleep's huge. I know for me, you can do all the recovery you want. You can have the ice baths and the massages and whatever. For me, it's sleep. If I don't get good sleep, it's just so detrimental to everything, mentally, physically, especially. Mentally, waking up feeling exhausted because you've had a real crap sleep is just not the way you want to start a day. And I really feel for everyone who struggles, anyone who shows up in my presence who says they've had a horrible night's sleep or can't sleep. I really feel sorry for. And I spent a bit of time looking at it because I struggle with it for a long time. Not as much as you struggle with it, of course, but really struggle with it. So good for you. Well done.
Oh, mate, it's been an absolute game changer. It really is. And
I've got a great recommendation.
Yeah.
This is the other way completely. I only found out a couple of weeks ago how much of a change putting lemon juice on watermelon is. Game changer.
What?
Not a big watermelon fan. Like, I'll eat it. It's got to be pretty nice. So sometimes it's a little bit powdery. Yeah. So, you get doom scrolling. I got a bit doom scrolling while we were bored at work. And there's these people putting, I don't know how this popped up. I don't know how algorithms work, but it went to me with this guy puts lemon juice all over his watermelon and eats it. And it's a game changer. It tastes so good.
Really?
Through so many watermelons, just power through it. Some of it's boring cutting them up into little squares and then pouring lemon juice over it. But yeah, try it.
Okay, that's on the to-do list, guys.
That's my takeaway. And finally, before we go, contact info. Anyone out there? I know you've been a little bit swamped lately with everything that's been coming in, but contact info. Best places to contact you if anyone even just wants to chat, wants a little bit more info on the kind of training and sales that you offer.
They can find us at the email address of Better Outcomes, which is better-outcomes.com.au. But probably just easiest on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn,
Paul Harrison Trainer. Yeah.
LinkedIn.
And we have the Better Outcomes training LinkedIn page there as well, so people can connect there.
Yep, we've got YouTube coming up. Obviously, this is on Spotify. We'll chuck them up on YouTube as well. There'll be other links and stuff to it. Maybe some other socials if us old blokes can figure out how to get rid of the balloons that keep popping up.
Yeah, I don't even know I don't know if they're linked to some particular word or anything like that.
What you do to me?
But I don't know. No idea. I saw them as well.
You've connected the balloons to my profile or something, haven't you?
Wasn't me, boss. Wasn't me.
That's all right. I don't mind the balloons. Everyone out there, thank you very much for listening. If you're still listening.
There you go.
We've had fun, haven't we?
Absolutely. Fantastic.
Sorry for the hiccups. Paulie, have a great day.